is if anything passes the United States Senate with 100% approval, whether it's the No Tax on Tips Act, Marco Rubio's cabinet appointment, anything in between, I start to be a little bit concerned. So what does the No Tax on Tips Act do? It was something that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris both promised. Again, very concerning if those two are in agreement on something.
She copied him. She didn't have anything.
So the legislation would create a tax deduction worth up to $25,000 for tips, limited to cash tips that workers report to employers for withholding purposes on payroll taxes. The tax break would also be restricted to employees who earn $160,000 or less in 2025, an amount that will rise with inflation in the coming years.
So cash only?
So no, it's cash, check, credit. It's basically like reported as cash.
Gotcha.
So my question is, why this and why now? Like out of everything, because like the Senate version of this bill was put together and it's gone to the House for approval, and they're now debating over whether they should include that as the no tax on tips provision in Trump's big beautiful bill or pass it on its own.
Which seems to take some of the power out of Trump's big beautiful bill. I mean, there's been a lot of contention over this bill, not only from Democrats, but also a lot of Republicans as well. There were 5 Republicans that actually voted against it when it initially went through the House. The things that people seem to be in, like, complete and total agreement on is making the 2017 tax cuts permanent. But then also all of these things that were a part of the mandate and the reason why Trump got elected was for the workers, for the economy, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. There's a lot of things inside the bill that people still don't like. So if you take out some of the most powerful aspects of that bill and you make it a standalone bill, aren't you taking some of the fighting power out of this thing when there's already so much contention around it?
But I'm going to be honest.
I like that, though. I like the direction of them making it a single issue thing. I mean, it is sketchy that they just zeroed in on this, and like, because I never hear of the Senate initiating a bill. You know, it's always the House, but like, and it's rare that they just like jump on something and make it an issue they want to vote on. But I think this is the way things should go. I think they should vote on single issue things, and just like fire them off every day.
I'd be okay with them all being like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Putting all of those 3 together.
Yeah, three pages instead of 3,000 pages.
Yeah.
Like, they would try to make it 3,000 pages even with just those
Which
issues.
is what the big beautiful bill literally looks like.
Exactly. It's these
10,000.
omnibus bills that you need an advanced degree in legal speak in order to decipher.
Yeah.
And like the people in Congress don't even know what's in it.
Yeah,
It's
they
like
get
the lobbyists who
they
write
get 2 hours to read the 18,000 page bill. But I'll be honest, and I might be in a minority on this. I think this is really dumb. I don't like the no tax on tips provision.
Huh?
It is not that I am pro-tax. I believe that not only is taxation theft, but the income tax should be illegal because it was a temporary measure put in place during wartime that was just left as a permanent standing expense for everyone in the country. And it should be abolished. But this is not a step on the road to abolishing the federal income tax. This is, as always, the United States government using the tax code to pick winners and losers. And this is such a weird, obscure thing, such a niche little interest of, any restaurant or server or whoever else that works for tips now is tax exempt. Well, my question is, are tips income or are they not? Because if tips are income, they shouldn't be any more immune to federal income tax than any other income. And if they're not income and are therefore tax exempt, why am I paying it? Why, if I go to certain places, is a gratuity included in the bill? Because these things are treated like a standing part of your expense. You go to a restaurant and you're supposed to tip the server at least 20%. Regardless of how their service is.
Which is insane because nowadays they'll actually bring you out the check. They won't even tell you that gratuity is automatically included.
The gratuity is automatically included.
And then some of them have the audacity to say, yes, so the gratuity there, that's for the whole restaurant, but whatever you leave, that'll go to just me. It's like, dude, what? They try to guilt trip you with that whole thing?
So that's,
and they pay them like $4 an hour too.
That's treated like a standard expense. Like you have no say in whether you give a tip.
Yeah.
Either it's written into the bill or you are faced with social pressure of like, you're screwing this poor guy out of an extra $5 because you won't leave it. Okay, well then why am I mandated to give you a gift that's not taxable? Like, if it's a gift, why is it not an option for me? And if it's income, why is it tax-free when every other bit of income... So if this passes, here is my plan. If this passes and no tax on tips, becomes law of the land. The next day, I am marching into Patrick's office and saying, Patrick, please reduce my salary to $1 a year, and if you like my service that I perform for the company, give me the rest of my salary as a tip. Because then I don't have to pay income tax. And what I am making on the single dollar, any tax I pay there, I'm well below the poverty line, so I get it all back. So
they said up to 25,000 though, right?
Yes.
So you would take
parameters.
25,000 of your salary and say that that's a tip instead of income.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I'm with you. Yeah.
Right.
This is going to create an explosion of tipping. And tipping is already so out of hand that
It is out of hand.
I was just
It's getting worse.
I was just at a concert a few weeks ago, and it's like a small venue. It's not crazy busy or anything. The guy at the t-shirt counter, I'm like, hey, can I get the tour shirt in an extra large? He reaches into a box, pulls it out to me, or hands it to me. I look at him like, cool. He turns an iPad around for me to insert my credit card, and there's an option for a tip starting at 20%.
Get outta here.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, you
get
handed me
out.
a t-shirt.
I hit zero with pleasure on those things
Yeah.
when like they did nothing for the tip.
But they make the
1,000.
no tip like a tiny little thing
Right.
hidden in the corner.
I
Matter of
looked them
fact-
in the eye and hit 0.
Matter of fact, I picked this fight when once he rolled out tips at Subway. I was so mad. I couldn't believe it. Like, matter of fact, them being in that glass thing is in the way of me making a better sandwich. All right, so I should be tipped.
Yeah.
I should be tipped because you're half-assing that orange chicken on my sandwich. You know what I mean? I'm mixing restaurants. But back to this. Being serious. Let's break this down. All right. I just did the research, and we're talking about that tips in general, like the amount of tips a year, is very hard to tell, like, because they're very underreported. But it's on the ballpark of $50 to $60 billion. All right?
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, in the size of America, thinking that, you have some restaurants in New York that tips are $10,000, $20,000 is not much, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Then add the income tax to it. So taxable, you probably have in the ballpark between 15 and 20 billion. When we're spending how many trillions a year? Like, I think
Was it 7?
it's 7 trillion a year. Like, so if you put it on the grand scheme of things, like, it's a big win for Trump because there's nothing that he loves more than having promises made, promises kept. Then you need to look at Trump's background, all right? He comes from very tip-heavy industries, all right? So big on hotel,
Yeah.
all right? That's very tip-heavy. Big on restaurants, it's very tip-heavy. Big on golf courses, it's very tip-heavy. Big on casinos, it's very tip-heavy. So he comes from being surrounded by a lot of tip-based individuals around,
Yeah.
all right? Then at the same time, like, since you can, sell your butt on OnlyFans, having to work, because working service, I don't know if any of you guys worked service before. It's tough. It's hard. Like,
I didn't last a week, man. My first job at McDonald's, I lost a freaking week.
well,
Anyway,
maybe you weren't getting tipped enough, all right?
they don't tip in Australia.
Did you cry?
Did I cry?
Yeah.
No,
At-
but
at the
I
job?
literally seriously considered pretending to faint. I didn't. I didn't.
of just
To
saying I
get out of
quit.
the shift. It was so hot. It was literally like, I forget what it is in Celsius, but I was dying working fries. It sucks.
All right.
So, but imagine this though. Imagine if you're able to write off the tips as a company as a tax expense, because you're not able. Like, labor is the only thing you're not able to write off. That's why Trump hired contractors instead of actual employees, because you could write off what you pay a contractor, but you can't write off what you pay an employee. So imagine if you convert 25,000 of everybody's salary into a tip, and then could write that off. So like, that's super stimulating to the economy. I don't know if they're thinking about it in that way, but that just crossed my mind.
I actually brought it up to.
No, you didn't. When'd you bring that up? What?
I brought up if we could switch the app that we have to being tips instead of being, like payments. That's a small one. That would be a great one. But
for both though, it's good for the employee because they don't get taxed on it, and it's good for the company if they could write that off as an expense, like writing off a salary as an expense.
I did the weave, and I want to go full back to Connor's point. All right, because this is a very important point. Like, this is not a stepping stone in the right direction. It could be like framed properly, like this stepping stone on tips. And coming up next on the next season of like getting rid of an illegal tax, we're gonna do overtime. All right. I would love this if it wasn't a roadmap towards freeing Americans from something that from what I read and the friends I hang out with, is illegal.
Well, it's a war though. It's like a football game or
But
something.
you know
Like
what I mean?
like
Yeah,
every time they put gun legislation in, that's a win for people who are against the Second Amendment. So like they were chopping away at us every year. It starts with a 3% tax on tea, and then like this and that. The World War One, and they incrementally increase the degree to which they have tax power over us. So I think this would be I don't know what kind of hidden time bombs or weapons are in this thing, but I think like anything we get past like this is like a win and like a march towards like not having taxes anymore. So like we got to take the wins where we can get them.
Trump said his end goal already. Like we know what the end goal is, and it's to eliminate income tax for anyone making less than $150,000 a year.
Yeah,
they've explicitly said that.
And that's a small portion of income taxes too.
But that's also, again, they are picking winners and losers because.
Oh, so you're against that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Why?
I am 100% against any person paying income tax.
Mm-hmm.
The income tax should be abolished. And here's my quarterly reminder that tax fraud is only a crime because not enough of us commit it. If everybody just decided one year they weren't going to pay their taxes, not much the government can do about it. And congratulations, we the people have abolished the income tax. But what I'm saying is that they're saying, okay, people who file for taxes, if you make less than $150,000 a year, income tax free. All right, what if there's a household with a combined income of $250,000 a year? Each of the people in that household are making less than that, but if they file jointly, suddenly they're on the hook for income tax, even though each of their individual salaries is less than that.
So don't file jointly.
Yeah, but
that's a step in the right direction, though. That like if the end goal is to not have income taxes, getting that passed is a step in that direction. Like you can't, like, as badly as I want no income taxes, like we're in such a bad situation where we can't just snap our fingers and say like, okay, no more, because like everything would fall apart at this point if they did that. Like $7 trillion or $5 trillion of income tax, then $2 trillion of deficit spending. But yeah, so you got to kind of do it gradually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm all for the slow burn if that's what it takes. But they have said cutting it off at $150,000. That's the end goal. Then what
for Trump? But then the next guy could go farther.
What incentive is there to do beyond that? Because then it really is just you're giving tax cuts to the rich, which is the one thing nobody will.
Wait, isn't it the opposite? Tax cuts to the rich, isn't it the opposite?
Yeah, they're increasing.
They're increasing it for the rich. But what it will do is it will disincentivize people who are maybe at like that six-figure mark from really going forward and getting that next promotion. Imagine being stuck in that intermediate where if you surpass that, then your total taxes would actually make it less. And if you just stayed at 100K or something, that would suck.
This is 100%. I have a friend. His dad is one of the most famous plastic surgeons back home. And he literally works until the cap, because there's like different levels of like income, like there's different brackets.
Right.
He works until he reaches bracket 4 out of 5.
And then stops.
Yeah. And he's like, I used to work 12 months out of the year to like when I get to 5, 3 months out of the years, they go to the government. I never seen the government in my operating room. I never seen the government sweeping my floor. So from now on, I'm stopping at 4. I have the money invested that doesn't pay capital gains until you take it out. I put the money invested. I let that money work. That money doesn't pay taxes. And I stop working at month 9. Sometimes he works 8 months out of the year.
Right.
And this is so important to the soul of America. America is a country where you come from nothing and become a billionaire. All right. This entrepreneurial spirit in this country is like nothing I ever seen anywhere else. It's the only place you can actually become super successful. And once you cap that, America loses its edge.
I agree. It doesn't incentivize the right behavior for people who are at that level, people who could break through that 6-figure income level onto like, potentially employing hundreds of people as a millionaire, right?
And now to Brandolina's point. If it's this Yanga, you take that piece out. How much do you think it accounts for?
The taxes?
Yeah, income tax. Just income tax.
Income tax on anyone under 150.
No, income tax on the national federal balance.
Oh, of like the budget each year.
Yeah,
it's 4 out of 5 trillion.
All right, that's 49%.
No, it's 4 trillion out of the 5 trillion.
Yeah, that what they get back. So if you take income tax from the budget balance right now, like Brandon is right, the country would collapse.
Well, yeah, like military, medical spending, social security, like education. Yeah, like so like you're gonna take a lot of jobs away and take a lot of stability away. Like even go down to like police departments and fire departments and all that. So you need a weaning off process and like a.
That's why Dodge was so important.
Yeah.
And it flopped. But
no, it didn't flop. They stabbed Elon in the back. And by the way, if you guys want to know about that, Dangerous Conversations is coming Saturday. That's my main feature story.
Let me know if you want to fight about it.
Sorry for the
sometime.
shameless plug.
If you want to
but-
fight about it, I can fight about it
you
right
wanna
now.
fight about it
Dude, poor
sometime.
Elon, man. They completely screwed that guy over. And speaking of this, and speaking of the Omnibus bill and Trump's big, beautiful bill, like, I would be okay with damn near everything in there if they were also to codify the Doge cuts at the same time and put through a rescission bill at the exact same time that they put through the big, beautiful bill, because then it would balance the budget. But they won't do that. 26 Republicans voted against it.
Tell me this though: why did he never, not once, not a single time, mention the Pentagon?
I mean,
Elon?
he's
They didn't mention it.
Elon repeatedly mentioned auditing the Pentagon.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he didn't.
Did he audit it, is what
No.
you're saying? I mean, he mentioned it, but did he? He was probably starting in the more obvious
He
places
talked
where the
fairly
weight.
extensively
Well,
about
he's a
auditing
defense-
the DoD.
He's a defense contractor, and he
found,
didn't do.
he found so much waste, Brandon. They found they,
200 billion.
the goal was trillions of dollars. Granted,
He
they
guaranteed
didn't
a
quite make
trillion.
it to that. He guaranteed a trillion. Granted, they didn't quite make it to that, but they uncovered so much stuff, so many ridiculous things, but there's only so much they can do. Like, you can't drain the swamp when the swamp owns the pipe. And for example, some of the things Elon canceled them by 3 p.m. By 6 p.m., they're revived. They're back up again. That was completely outside of his control. I don't want to speak on this too much because it's going to give away the story that I have coming out on Saturday. But
Yeah, we could fight about it sometime.
we'll fight about it sometime.
Okay.
Brandon and I love to fight.
No,
Yeah.
but they
Just see us off camera.
they undermined it. They just didn't do what was promised.
Mm-hmm.
They did not deliver on the Doge cuts. Now we know fraud, waste, and abuse. And
Well, like half
I
of
guess
the-
it just stays there.
And now
Half of
nothing
Pentagon
happens.
spending is because of them overcharging us. That's the thing that Republicans and Democrats have said. And instead of looking into that, we increased the budget from 800 billion to $1 trillion. So
Yeah, and this-
I think that's not a great use of money.
It's one of the strongest criticisms of Trump from his first term, might be the one for his second. Trump, in his first term, was catastrophic for the budget. He blew out the national budget in the same way that Obama and Bush did before him.
Especially with the stimulus for COVID.
Yeah. And
That was
like
a
that
mistake.
was this back to the tax point. Yeah, I only qualified for one COVID stimulus check. And honestly, that was too much because I never missed a day of work. The second COVID broke out and they put the lockdown in place, everyone at my office went home. I was working online the next day and we were there for 2 years. I didn't miss a day of work. I got it who knows how many times, and that was the only time I was actually out. So I missed the first 2 rounds of stimulus, and then one morning I woke up and there was an extra $1,400 in my bank account because I qualified for one.
Wow.
I'm like, great, that $1,400 was nice.
You know
It was nice to have that extra money. You know what would have been much, much nicer? The 15 grand I paid in taxes that same year.
True.
So if Trump had come out and been
Or
like,
how
hey,
about the inflation that
yeah,
you got after
in
that?
this time of national crisis, unprecedented global catastrophe on our hands, the federal income tax is hereby suspended until everything like that would have stimulated the
Right.
economy so much more.
Facts.
But instead, they're like, no, it's got to be even. So we're just going to distribute $1,400 checks to anybody we deem worthy.
See, I don't know because government spending is a big part of our GDP, so I don't know if that would stimulate it right away. If I was in there, I would say 10% flat tax across the board, and then just increase sales taxes right now for this phasing out process. Because like sales taxes isn't as insidious as income tax because you're making a choice to buy something.
What
But
do you want sales tax to be?
what is it right now? I was
So
just thinking.
it varies by state, but I think it's
Yeah.
like average 7-8%.
Wait,
Yeah,
does that
so-
just mean when you buy shit?
Yeah.
So like
That's why
okay.
the price
So
on the
jack it up
shelf
to,
is
like-
never actually
Well,
what
that's
it
so
costs.
weird. So in Australia, they include they call it GST, goods and service tax, in the price that is displayed. That's
I think
something
we're
I
one of
really
the
had to
only
get used to
we're
when
one of
I
the only
moved
countries
here.
that doesn't do that.
Yeah.
No, and it's for a very good reason.
Tell me
Very
why.
good
Tell me
reason.
why. Tell me why.
The thing is, they just passed a law in Chile to do it this way. The thing is that people don't realize the way they're getting robbed by the government. So when you see something, okay, $5, you go to the cashier and your bill ends up being $6.
You know you got taxed $1.
You know
Yeah.
you got taxed $1,
Right.
right? So it's the most transparent thing that you can
It
have.
says
That
at the
makes
bottom-
sense.
yeah.
Okay.
You know?
But watch that.
That's a really good point.
When you see how that compounds with like, well, there's $300 of groceries in my cart, and suddenly it's like just shy of $500.
Yeah.
Like there's all sorts of these hidden taxes. and
But
it's
what's a
very weird,
bigger
but-
number between your income and the amount you spend on groceries
No,
per
like
year?
the country should run off of import sales and property taxes.
100%.
And
just like tax on goods and services, because
Yeah.
if you get like the velocity of money going fast and all that's taxed, then that's a lot of money for the government. And if you're not taxing people's income, then they have like at least the control over what they do with the money. Because like buying something is a
tax
choice.
on our labor is not the right way to go, because with how all of us work, I believe we're all on like W-2s for the most part. It's not a tax on us. We never see that money. I don't get gross pay in my bank account, and then the money goes to the government.
Right.
The money comes from my employer,
And they
who
pay it
pays out of
automatically.
that and then gives me what's left as my paycheck.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
take-home pay is money that I never even see. So when I joke about like, oh, if we all committed tax, I don't even have the option of committing tax fraud. I need to get the HR department at Valuetainment on board with helping me commit tax fraud. And
I'm
that,
pushing, bro.
unfortunately, knowing our HR people, I mean, whether it's a good
Lovely
thing or
HR
bad
people.
thing, lovely people, the best.
There's good
they
people
would
both
not help me
sides.
commit tax fraud. And that's unfortunate because it's not even an option. My labor is taxed whether I consent to it or not.
Well, as a
So-
president of the Nothing Ever Happens chapter of Fort Lauderdale, nothing will ever happen. That's my take on it. You know, like I think there was good intentions, and I was really sad by Elon's tweet closing. You know,
I did my best.
Oh, it was so
yeah.
sad.
it is.
He's like, yeah, sigh. They're like, oh, you got backstabbed. Yeah, sigh. I tried my best.
What a murder.
It broke my heart, and the thing is,
Technocrat.
that's fine. But when he said that like radical efficiency and growth is the only way out of this,
Yeah, GDP growth, great. So Elon's new strategy will now be to import 1 billion Indians on H-1B visas.
Or
That'll fix all of
he
our
said
issues.
to create that his Tesla bots and like an army of bots that can contribute, not an army to fight, but to contribute to
Not at first.
They'll be
not at first, but he's saying that could massively like help to counteract some of the deficit at least within 3 to 5 years.
But the thing is, and I love what Connor said at the beginning, you know, stepping stones. Dumping the tea, you know, for the Tea Party, because of taxes, right? Dumping the tea is not a big deal. That didn't solve any problems, you know.
symbolic.
It's symbolic. So I knew that this Dodge thing wasn't gonna solve this and abolish all income taxes, but we kept the message after the Tea Party. We didn't keep this message, and we didn't make it into like a lighthouse where we're heading. You know what I mean? And I think that's really sad. I don't know.
Yeah.
So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.